Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to impress a woman, the faster her interest fades? It's not confidence she feels, it's need. Machiavelli understood that real attraction has nothing to do with pursuit. It comes from silence, from presence, from the calm certainty of someone who doesn't chase. This isn't a trick or a line. It's psychology, the kind that makes her think about you long after you're gone. If you're ready to understand why the man who doesn't move always becomes the center of attention, subscribe, and let's begin. Chapter 1. The first look. There is a moment in every room, subtle yet undeniable, when time itself seems to fold inward. It happens in the space between glances, an encounter so brief it could almost be dismissed, and yet the entire rhythm of the world shifts around it. You feel it in the hollow beneath your ribs, in that quiet tremor that ripples through your body before your mind even finds words. A woman looks at you from across the room, her gaze brushing against yours for just a fraction too long. And in that infinitesimal instant, something ancient awakens. You feel drawn forward, compelled by a magnetic impulse that feels biological, inevitable, almost sacred. Every part of your body conspires to move, to speak, to bridge the distance that now exists only because it was noticed. Most men surrender to that impulse immediately. They mistake instinct for command, believing that desire must be followed or it will vanish. They adjust their posture, square their shoulders, and begin the slow, uncertain march across the room. They rehearse phrases in their minds, calibrate smiles, smooth out their tone to sound confident, unaware that the more they prepare to act, the more they dissolve the invisible power they once possessed. The very act of pursuit, born from sincerity and courage, becomes the instrument of self-sabotage. In seeking to impress, they unconsciously declare submission, not in words, but in energy. Niccolo Machiavelli never wrote a manual for attraction, yet his principles of human behavior and power apply with uncanny precision to this moment. He understood that whoever reacts first in any exchange, whether political or personal, yields control of the dynamic. In The Prince, he warned that power does not belong to those who seek it openly, but to those who appear already to own it. The same is true in the theater of desire. The first to move becomes the one who waits to be chosen. The still figure, composed and unreadable, becomes the one who dictates the rhythm of interaction without lifting a hand. Desire is not merely an emotion, it is a negotiation of attention. The one who desires more automatically places the other in a position of psychological authority. This exchange is not visible, yet it is felt in the subtleties of body language, timing, tone, and even silence. When a man walks toward a woman he desires, it is rarely his words that betray him. It is the energy of movement itself, the confession of wanting, that changes the balance of power. He approaches with a smile rehearsed to seem natural, but the body cannot lie. The microsecond of hesitation, the slightly elevated rhythm of breath, the fractional lean forward, all of it announces one message: you have my focus, and therefore my power. Machiavelli's wisdom was brutal in its clarity. He observed that those who must chase authority rarely deserve it, for power that requires explanation or justification is no longer power but performance. In matters of attraction, this translates simply: the more you attempt to prove your worth, the more you reveal your lack of certainty in it. The essence of magnetism is not found in effort, but in stillness, not in movement, but in gravity. Imagine the difference between a planet and a satellite. The planet moves slowly, almost imperceptibly, yet everything around it bends toward its mass. The satellite races in endless orbit, drawn and trapped by the invisible field it cannot control. To embody attraction is to become the planet, to develop such density of self that the space around you adjusts without your command. You do not pursue, you remain, and what is meant to revolve around you eventually does so by its own accord. This does not mean coldness or apathy. It means mastery of the impulse to seek validation. The magnetic man feels desire fully, but refuses to act from it impulsively. He lets the current of wanting pass through him without becoming its prisoner. He stands as the eye of the storm, calm, observant, aware of everything, yet owned by nothing. This restraint is not suppression, it is direction. The energy that would otherwise leak through nervous gestures or over-eager words becomes condensed, concentrated, potent. It radiates as composure, confidence, and intrigue. When a woman senses that energy, she does not interpret it as indifference. She feels it as self-possession. It is not a void that repels, but a space that invites curiosity. The less you reveal, the more she imagines. The more you withhold reaction, the more she seeks reason. That search, that mental friction between uncertainty and fascination, is what we call attraction. It is the tension that turns two strangers into magnetic opposites. The greatest error most men make is believing that attraction grows through addition, adding effort, adding words, adding gestures. In truth, attraction thrives through subtraction. Every unnecessary movement weakens it. Every attempt to impress dilutes it. Machiavelli would have called it the economy of power. Give nothing that must be taken back later. The same rule applies here. You do not offer attention as a gift to be repaid. You let it be earned by curiosity. Stillness becomes your language. Silence becomes your weapon. When she looks again and finds you unchanged, calm, attentive, and unshaken, she begins to wonder what you know that others do not. That wonder is the first thread of attachment, woven not from your words, but from her imagination. You have created what Machiavelli might have called controlled uncertainty, the art of making others act in your interest without explicit instruction. Attraction is not about convincing someone to see your value. It is about embodying a reality in which your value is already assumed. That reality cannot be built overnight, nor can it be faked. It is cultivated in the quiet hours of self-discipline, in the consistent pursuit of purpose, in the refusal to let emotional hunger dictate your behavior. The man who lives from abundance does not chase because he does not lack. His attention is deliberate, his energy scarce, his focus difficult to earn. And scarcity, in the language of the subconscious, always equals value. In that first moment across the room, you stand at a crossroads between instinct and intention. You can follow the primal urge to move, to speak, to seek approval, or you can contain it, allow it to ferment into quiet power. The world will not end if you wait. The silence will not destroy you. It will define you. When you hold your ground, she will notice, because few men ever do. She will sense the difference between the noise of pursuit and the calm of authority. And when she finally breaks the silence, when curiosity overrides caution and she takes the step you did not, you will understand the principle that has governed rulers, generals, and lovers alike. The one who controls reaction controls reality. Power, in every form, belongs to the one who can remain unmoved while others act from impulse. So when that glance returns, when her eyes meet yours, and the room seems to dissolve around the gravity of that exchange, remember the rule that Machiavelli would have whispered if he had ever written of love: never react first. For the one who moves first begins to orbit, and the one who remains still becomes the center around which all else turns. Chapter 2. The Error of Movement. There is a strange comfort in movement. When you act, you feel alive. When you chase, you feel purposeful. The rhythm of pursuit gives you the illusion of progress, even when every step leads you further away from power. The human mind is addicted to action because stillness feels like defeat. And yet, the paradox of attraction and of all influence is that the more you reach outward, the more invisible you become. This is the illusion of pursuit, the second and most common error of men who seek connection without understanding its physics. You can see it everywhere. A man notices a woman's glance or imagines it, and suddenly he becomes a strategist. He calculates the right timing for messages, the best posture for photographs, the most impressive stories to tell. He becomes an actor on a stage of his own design, performing not to express himself, but to elicit a specific reaction. Every movement becomes a subtle plea: see me, choose me, validate me. And yet, each one, every message, every carefully crafted compliment, only deepens his invisibility. Because the act of seeking attention communicates that attention is something he does not already possess. Machiavelli would have recognized this pattern immediately. In The Prince, he warned that a ruler who constantly tries to please his subjects ends up despised by them. A leader who bends too often to win approval loses authority entirely. The same truth applies in attraction. Whoever pursues too eagerly to gain affection becomes forgettable. The desperate are always invisible, not because they lack charm, but because they radiate dependence. The human mind, especially the feminine one attuned to emotional energy, instinctively retreats from those who require validation to exist. The illusion of pursuit is seductive because it feels noble. You tell yourself you are being brave, that you are putting yourself out there. You mistake exposure for strength and availability for confidence. Yet real strength is not revealed through constant approach. It is revealed through selective engagement. The gravitational center of power remains motionless because it does not need to move. Everything worth having orbits around it naturally. Think of it like a dance performed without music. The man who chases steps too soon disrupts the rhythm and turns the exchange into chaos. The one who waits, who listens for the silent tempo between moments, moves in harmony with something deeper than impulse. Pursuit driven by scarcity always sounds offbeat. It strains, it forces, it demands. But energy that emerges from abundance flows effortlessly, and this is the difference between visible effort and invisible influence. Every act of pursuit, no matter how small, carries a hidden message. When you text too quickly, when you fill silence with words, when you plan encounters to engineer proximity, you're not saying, "I'm interested." You're saying, "I'm uncertain." You're confessing that you cannot trust the world to bring what you desire without interference. That uncertainty is felt more strongly than anything you actually say. Humans, after all, evolved to detect instability. Our nervous systems were built to sense imbalance long before our minds learned language. the moment your energy becomes erratic, the other person's subconscious translates it as weakness. Machiavelli believed that power is not something one takes, it's something one allows others to give. A ruler who demands loyalty creates fear, and fear eventually breeds betrayal. But a ruler who acts as though loyalty is the natural order of things makes others desperate to prove it true. In relationships, the same principle operates invisibly. When you act as though affection must be earned through effort, it slips through your fingers. But when you behave as though attraction is the natural consequence of your presence, others unconsciously adjust their behavior to fit that assumption. This is the quiet dominance of the magnetic man. He does not convince, he confirms. To stop chasing is not to withdraw. It is to shift from proving to allowing. It is to recognize that every attempt to manipulate perception reveals insecurity, and that true magnetism begins with emotional detachment. Not the cold detachment of cynicism, but the serene detachment of self-possession. When you release the need for control, you paradoxically gain it, because you are no longer being moved by every fluctuation of attention. But the illusion of pursuit extends deeper than social behavior. It reaches into identity. The man who chases does not only chase a woman, he chases his own reflection. He wants to see himself mirrored in her eyes, to feel valuable through her reaction, to confirm his existence through her desire. This dependency is the quiet poison of modern attraction, the belief that validation equals connection. And yet, what is given out of your need to be seen will always come back as pity, not respect. Machiavelli wrote that men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear, and that the wise ruler chooses to be feared when he cannot be loved. But in attraction, fear and love operate differently. They are not emotions you inflict, but energies you embody. Fear, in this context, is not terror, but awe. It is the recognition of someone whose self-certainty makes them unpredictable, untouchable, and therefore compelling. The magnetic man is not feared because he threatens. He is feared because he cannot be controlled. The woman who encounters him senses that her usual tactics, testing, teasing, withholding, have no effect. This absence of reaction unsettles her, not because it wounds her ego, but because it awakens her curiosity. The pursuit, therefore, must end before it begins. You do not walk toward her energy, you let hers move toward yours. You maintain the posture of the unhurried, the rhythm of one who has time. When you speak, your tone carries no urgency. You allow pauses, silence, the slow gravity of confidence. Even your body mirrors stillness, movements measured, gestures minimal, presence unwavering. You are not performing detachment. You are living from it. The world becomes slower around you because your internal pace defines the environment. At first, she may not understand. She may even test you. Delays in reply, subtle provocations, moments designed to provoke pursuit. But tests are never invitations. They are measurements of composure. The ordinary man fails them by reacting. The magnetic man passes by doing nothing. Every unanswered test amplifies tension, and tension is the birthplace of attraction. Over time, she begins to orbit the silence you have created. The energy of curiosity replaces comfort, and comfort is what kills desire. She will want to resolve the imbalance, to understand what makes you unaffected. And without realizing it, she begins to chase, not your attention, but your composure. The illusion of pursuit is dismantled when you recognize that attraction does not require activity, but alignment. It requires you to be so fully immersed in your purpose, so centered in your world, that no outcome with another person can disturb your equilibrium. From this state, your mere presence becomes enough. Words become decoration. Effort becomes unnecessary. So the next time you feel that old impulse to send the first message, to fill the silence, to reach across the invisible space between you, remember that every act of pursuit erodes the mystery you're trying to create. Let the silence work for you. Let her wonder. Let her feel the absence of your need as the presence of your power. For Machiavelli's truth applies here as much as it did in the courts of princes. The one who seeks approval inevitably becomes the servant of it. To pursue is human. To attract without motion is divine. Chapter 3. The law of invisibility power, in any form, survives by concealment. The more visible your intentions, the less control you possess over how they are perceived. Every time you reveal your hand, whether in politics, persuasion, or desire, you surrender the quiet leverage that mystery provides. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He observed that those who expose their motives too openly invite resistance, because human beings instinctively rebel against what they can predict. The same principle rules attraction. Once she can read you, she no longer feels compelled to think about you. Invisibility is not absence. It is presence without exposure, influence without effort. The art of letting your silence speak where words would only dilute meaning. The ordinary man tries to make himself known, announcing his value through achievements, gestures, and constant signals of availability. He believes that visibility equals worth, that the louder he declares himself, the more likely he is to be chosen. Yet, in the world of attraction, this logic collapses. What is fully visible cannot be desired for long. Desire feeds on uncertainty. The magnetic man understands this and cultivates it deliberately. To be invisible is not to disappear. It is to become unreadable. You do not hide from the world. You simply stop explaining yourself to it. You let others project their assumptions upon the empty canvas of your restraint. The moment you stop clarifying, people begin to imagine. And imagination, once engaged, is far more powerful than information. Every word you withhold, every emotion you filter, every unanswered question you leave behind multiplies in value inside the mind of the observer. The woman who encounters your mystery cannot help but fill the void with stories, possibilities, fantasies. You become larger than life not by exaggeration, but by omission. This is not manipulation. It is the natural rhythm of human attention. The mind despises closure because closure ends curiosity. It craves the unfinished, the unsolved, the half-open door. When you make yourself completely knowable, you kill curiosity. When you hold something back, you invite endless speculation. That speculation becomes the invisible thread that binds her thoughts to you long after the conversation ends. Machiavelli advised rulers to appear predictable in virtue, but unpredictable in action, to show reliability in character, but not in intent. The same duality forms the foundation of personal magnetism. You must be consistent enough to feel safe, yet enigmatic enough to remain fascinating. Too much mystery creates distance. Too much openness breeds boredom. The balance lies in selective revelation. Show fragments of yourself, never the full portrait. Let what you reveal seem accidental, as though glimpsed through a crack in a closed door. This balance begins internally. The invisible man is not playing a role. He is anchored in self-possession. He does not need to perform mystery because his attention is genuinely occupied by deeper pursuits. His focus is not on controlling perception, but on cultivating substance. The world senses this difference instantly. Pretended mystery feels like strategy. Authentic mystery feels like depth. When your attention is scattered, others feel your need to be seen. When your attention is grounded, they feel drawn without understanding why. Imagine two men at the same gathering. One moves constantly, engaging everyone, filling the air with laughter and stories, ensuring that every eye rests on him for at least a moment. The other stands quietly, listening more than he speaks. His words deliberate, his movements calm. The first man shines brightly for an instant and is forgotten by morning. The second man lingers in memory because he was not fully understood. His silence leaves an aftertaste of curiosity. The first entertains, the second haunts. The law of invisibility also governs digital life, where attention is currency. The man who floods timelines with images, updates, and opinions becomes background noise in the endless scroll. The one who posts rarely, who leaves traces rather than declarations, builds gravity. His absence becomes notable, his return charged with significance. The scarcity of his presence amplifies its effect. This principle is ancient, though the medium has changed. Value always increases in proportion to restraint. Invisibility, however, must never slide into indifference. The point is not to ignore, but to remain unpredictable in rhythm. Sometimes you engage fully, focused, attentive, present, and then you vanish back into your world. This fluctuation between presence and distance creates the emotional equivalent of a heartbeat, an alternating current that sustains tension. Predictable attention numbs the senses. Irregular patterns awaken them. She should never be certain whether she has your focus or your absence. It is within that uncertainty that her fascination grows. When you master invisibility, you begin to understand the true nature of attraction. It is not a contest of charm, but of memory. The question is not how you make her feel in the moment, but what she continues to feel in your absence. The ordinary man dominates presence. The magnetic man dominates absence. He leaves space behind him that vibrates with his energy long after he is gone. That lingering presence is what Machiavelli would call the echo of authority, the residual influence that endures when action has ceased. This discipline demands awareness. You must learn to resist the reflex to over-explain, to correct misunderstanding, to fill silence with reassurance. When she asks where she stands, you answer honestly, but not completely. When she tests you with distance, you respond with calm, not pursuit. When she tries to provoke reaction, you allow the moment to pass through you without altering your course. Each time you choose silence over reaction, you reinforce your gravity. Each time you refuse to fill the void deepens and begins to pull. Understand that invisibility is not about pretending to be unavailable. It is about being fully absorbed in your own world, your goals, your craft, your vision, so that attention becomes something sacred, given only with intention. You are not withholding affection, you are preserving focus. This is why the invisible man exerts more influence than the visible one, because his energy is rare. Invisibility also protects you. It shields your emotions from unnecessary exposure, your ambition from envy, your vulnerability from exploitation. Those who reveal too much invite interference. Those who maintain a degree of mystery control how and when they are touched by the world. This control is not coldness, but wisdom. Even in relationships, transparency must be earned, not offered wholesale. What is shared too easily is seldom valued. Over time, those around you adjust to your rhythm. They begin to treat your attention as a privilege rather than a guarantee. This is the invisible hierarchy of desire. Scarcity elevates, abundance devalues. You are not playing games. You are simply aligning with the laws of perception. Just as a diamond's worth comes from its rarity, your presence gains weight from its restraint. Eventually, she will learn to read your silence not as rejection, but as depth. She will interpret your unpredictability not as apathy, but as mystery. And when she finally earns your full attention, the intensity of that focus will be overwhelming precisely because it is rare. That is the true gift of invisibility. It transforms ordinary gestures into sacred experiences. So remember this law. What is unseen always controls what is visible. The man who can hide his intentions without losing authenticity commands both fascination and respect. Machiavelli might have written of kingdoms and armies, but his wisdom applies to the heart as well. Conceal your center, reveal only your direction, and let others move toward you in the dark. Chapter 4. The birth of the magnetic void. Every force in nature begins with absence. The seed is buried in darkness before it breaks into light. The universe itself expanded from an empty void whose silence contained every possibility. Power is not created through excess. It emerges from restraint. What attracts is not the noise of effort, but the quiet gravity of stillness. The same rule governs human connection. What pulls others toward you is not what you do, but what you withhold. This is the principle of the magnetic void, the subtle and invisible field born when a person learns to convert emptiness into presence. The ordinary man fears emptiness. He fills every pause with words, every silence with noise, every emotional gap with attempts to please. He interprets the lack of response as rejection and the lack of certainty as threat. His instincts push him to close every gap before it widens. But that panic, that desperate need to fill space, is the very thing that destroys his power. Because in every dynamic, whether political, social, or romantic, the one who fills space first loses control of it. Machiavelli understood this at the level of states and kings. In The Prince, he warned that a ruler who reacts too quickly to every disturbance becomes the servant of circumstance. The wise ruler, he wrote, learns to wait, to let chaos unfold until the moment of intervention becomes self-evident. Patience is not passivity, it is strategy. The same law applies to attraction. When you leave space between you and the world, between stimulus and response, you create the possibility of influence. The gap becomes the instrument of power. But the magnetic void is not mere absence. It is charged emptiness, deliberate and alive. It is not silence born of insecurity, but silence chosen from abundance. The difference lies in intent. When you withdraw to protect yourself, people sense fear. When you withdraw because your energy is too focused to be wasted, they sense strength. The same gesture, saying nothing, doing nothing, carries opposite meanings depending on whether it is fueled by scarcity or abundance. The magnetic void can only exist when you have learned to be full within your own silence. Imagine entering a room filled with conversation. Some people speak loudly, their words colliding in the air like static. Others laugh, trying to fill the invisible hunger between them. But then there is one person, quiet, composed, present, whose stillness seems to alter the rhythm of the entire space. They are not withdrawn, they are simply unmoved. Their energy radiates containment, as if their attention were a force that must be earned, not taken for granted. Without speaking a word, they change the temperature of the room. This is the magnetic void in action, presence amplified through absence. Attraction begins with tension, and tension cannot exist without distance. The ordinary man destroys attraction by collapsing the space too soon. He confesses, he explains, he pursues, he mistakes comfort for connection. But the magnetic man understands that tension is not the enemy. It is the architecture of desire. He allows distance to live. He does not rush to close it. He knows that longing, when managed correctly, is not pain but power. The magnetic void is built through 3 layers: restraint, redirection, and resonance. Restraint is the discipline of containment, the refusal to discharge energy through impulsive action. It means holding the urge to explain, to prove, to react. It means recognizing that your silence speaks louder than your words, because it forces others to confront their own emotions in the vacuum you've created. When someone cannot read your mind, they begin to read their own. Their thoughts turn inward, and you become the mirror reflecting their projections. This is why mystery seduces. It gives the imagination a stage to perform upon. Redirection follows restraint. Once you stop chasing external validation, you redirect that liberated energy toward purpose. Every hour spent seeking approval is an hour stolen from self-construction. The magnetic void grows strongest when the space once filled by anxiety becomes occupied by mission. You begin to live not in reaction to others, but in alignment with your own trajectory. When people encounter you, they feel the pull of that internal momentum. It is not charisma, it is coherence. Purpose is what gives stillness its density. Resonance is the final layer, the echo that travels beyond your presence. The void you create does not disappear when you leave. It lingers in the minds of others because it was never built on performance. It was built on authenticity. Every restrained impulse, every moment of calm, every unspoken word adds weight to your presence. When you walk away, the space you leave behind hums with invisible frequency. People remember not what you said, but how they felt when you said nothing. That emotional echo is what turns brief encounters into lasting impressions. Machiavelli wrote that the most powerful rulers were those whose presence was felt even in their absence. Their authority survived distance because it was not based on proximity or speech, but on perception. The same principle governs the magnetic void. The moment you stop chasing, your influence begins to expand beyond the physical. You occupy space in the mind, and the mind, unable to resolve uncertainty, continues to orbit your silence. Yet this discipline is not easy. To master the void, you must learn to sit with discomfort, to let the silence stretch longer than feels safe. You must resist the ancient urge to fill gaps with reassurance. The world is allergic to emptiness, and it will try to provoke you into breaking it. She will delay her reply just to see if you lose composure. She will test your boundaries to measure your stability. Every unanswered message, every prolonged silence, every ambiguous signal is a mirror held up to your emotional center. If you flinch, the illusion collapses. If you remain calm, the gravitational field deepens. The void does not beg to be filled. It invites others to fill it voluntarily. The difference is subtle but absolute. The moment she feels your absence as a choice rather than neglect, her curiosity awakens. She begins to move toward the silence, to close the gap, to seek understanding. You have not manipulated her. You have simply created a natural imbalance that her instincts compel her to correct. Desire is the body's way of restoring symmetry. Over time, this becomes more than technique. It becomes identity. The magnetic void is not a mask you wear. It is the natural aura of a man who no longer seeks completion outside himself. His relationships no longer drain him because they orbit his abundance rather than his need. His silence no longer isolates him because it vibrates with self-knowledge. He does not fear losing attention because attention was never his currency. His power lies in the invisible certainty that he could walk away at any moment without diminishing himself. The paradox of the magnetic void is that what feels like nothing becomes everything. It is the space between words that gives them meaning, the pause in music that gives rhythm its form, the quiet between heartbeats that keeps life from collapsing into chaos. To master attraction, or leadership, or art, is to understand this truth. Creation requires emptiness. Power requires restraint. So you must learn to build your void with care. Withhold words not from pride, but from clarity. Create silence not as punishment, but as space for resonance. Step back not to dominate, but to allow the natural pull of curiosity to do the work for you. When you act, let it be decisive. When you withdraw, let it be complete. Do not oscillate out of insecurity. The void only magnetizes when it is stable. Eventually, you will notice something remarkable. People begin to interpret your restraint as depth, your calm as confidence, your distance as self-sufficiency. They project meaning onto your silence because they crave meaning. You will see them leaning in, seeking fragments of your attention as though it were rare metal. You have become the gravitational center, not through force but through stillness. This is the birth of the magnetic void, the moment when your absence becomes your presence, when your silence becomes your message, and when your restraint becomes the force that bends reality around you. Machiavelli would have understood it well, for in every domain of power, the most commanding influence is not the loudest voice, but the quiet that others cannot ignore. Chapter 5. The Scarcity Signal. Everything that lives competes for attention. From the smallest flower stretching toward sunlight to empires shaping the course of history, existence itself is a negotiation for visibility. Yet in this endless struggle, there is one immutable rule. What appears abundant loses value, and what is scarce becomes sacred. The human mind is wired to equate rarity with worth, not through logic, but through instinct. When something is difficult to obtain, the subconscious assumes it must be extraordinary. This is the essence of the scarcity signal, the invisible language of attraction that needs no words. The ordinary man misunderstands this principle completely. He believes attention is love, and that by offering more of it, he can purchase affection. He texts often, replies instantly, arranges encounters, fills silence with reassurance, and mistakes accessibility for connection. Each act feels sincere to him, a gesture of honesty and care. Yet to her subconscious, it reads as overproduction, an oversupply of energy that instantly devalues the product. The same message that was once welcomed now feels heavy. The same presence that once excited her begins to feel predictable. The scarcity signal has been broken, and with it, the illusion of value. Machiavelli wrote that the wise ruler never grants favors too freely, for what is common is never respected. Generosity, he said, must be measured, otherwise it breeds contempt rather than gratitude. People remember not what they receive, but how hard it was to earn it. The same is true in human attraction. When your attention becomes constant, it ceases to register as reward. It becomes background noise. The more you give without discretion, the less your presence is felt. Scarcity is not about playing games. It is about restoring equilibrium. Every interaction contains a silent exchange of energy. When you invest more than you receive, the scale tilts. Balance collapses. The other person feels the weight of your expectation and instinctively resists it. Even when she doesn't consciously understand why, her body reads the imbalance as pressure. Her interest fades not out of cruelty, but out of biological necessity. The human mind seeks stability, and imbalance feels unsafe. The magnetic man does not chase equilibrium. He creates it through rhythm. He gives energy deliberately, not continuously. His availability fluctuates in a natural pattern, like the tide, coming close, then pulling away, always returning with purpose. When he is present, he is fully present. When he withdraws, he vanishes completely. There are no half measures, no constant need for contact. This ebb and flow triggers emotional oxygenation. It keeps the connection alive. Scarcity, in this sense, is not absence, it is pacing. The scarcity signal also extends beyond interaction into identity. Your lifestyle must communicate selective energy. If your days are filled with empty noise, scrolling, replying, seeking, you broadcast spiritual abundance in the wrong direction. You become abundant in availability and poor in presence. But when your time is visibly consumed by mission, by creation, by progress, scarcity occurs naturally. People can feel when your attention has value because it is anchored in something larger than them. The man who builds, learns, or creates does not need to pretend he's busy. His energy speaks before he does. This is why the man with purpose magnetizes without effort. His life is already full, his focus already occupied, his energy already claimed. When he gives attention, it is an act of choice, not reflex. That choice is what makes it precious. She feels that difference instantly, not as rejection, but as significance. To earn your time becomes the challenge, and challenge is the fuel of attraction. Without challenge, desire decays. The scarcity signal operates through contrast. If every word is answered, the unanswered one gains power. If every hour is accessible, the unavailable hour becomes sacred. Even in conversation, silence has more gravity when it follows speech. When everything is given freely, nothing can be valued. This principle is not moral, it is neurological. The brain assigns meaning through contrast. Darkness defines light, absence defines attention. By allowing emptiness to exist, you allow your presence to carry weight. Machiavelli understood that perception is more influential than truth. It matters less whether you are genuinely scarce or deliberately restrained. What matters is that your energy feels precious. In The Prince, he warned rulers to appear unpredictable in their generosity. Too much consistency makes subjects complacent. Unpredictability keeps them alert. attentive, and loyal. The same mechanism governs desire. When your rhythm cannot be predicted, her focus cannot wander. She becomes sensitized to every variation in your presence, attuned to every sign of approach or withdrawal. You have become her emotional climate. But the scarcity signal must never turn into manipulation. If your restraint is artificial, the energy will feel counterfeit. The body recognizes authenticity as surely as it recognizes deceit. True scarcity is not performance. It is the natural byproduct of a man who no longer trades attention for approval. You are not withholding to provoke reaction. You are simply living from fullness. The paradox of the magnetic man is that he seems indifferent, but feels alive. His detachment is not coldness, but composure. His silence is not punishment, but peace. In practice, scarcity expresses itself through micro-actions. You respond with intention, not urgency. You speak only when words add weight. You let the conversation breathe instead of forcing rhythm. You show up when it matters, not because you fear being forgotten. Your gestures are minimal but decisive, each one calibrated to carry meaning. The woman who encounters this energy senses that she must earn proximity. Her curiosity expands to fill the space you leave behind. This is the invisible architecture of attraction. Distance becomes the structure that holds desire upright. There will be moments when you feel the temptation to break this rhythm. Doubt will whisper that you are losing her, that silence equals risk. But you must remember, fear creates need, and need destroys gravity. If she drifts, let her drift. The magnetic void will either pull her back or reveal her as someone unaligned with your frequency. Both outcomes serve your power. The scarcity signal does not chase certainty. It exposes truth. Over time, this principle transforms the way you relate to everything, not just people, but ambition, possessions, and purpose. You stop running toward things and start letting them orbit naturally around your focus. You learn that attention is currency, and like any form of wealth, it gains value through management. You no longer waste it on reactions, arguments, or the endless hunger for recognition. Your silence becomes your signature, your patience your presence. Eventually, others begin to mirror your rhythm. They lower their voices when you speak. They wait for your approval without realizing it. They begin to measure time by your availability. This is the ultimate form of power, not domination, but gravitational influence. You have stopped chasing the world, and now the world moves toward you. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the perfection of statecraft applied to the soul. The prince who gives his presence sparingly commands loyalty without asking for it. The man who offers his energy selectively commands desire without demanding it. Both understand the same truth. What is rare becomes worshipped. So let your presence become scarce, not because you fear rejection, but because your time is precious. Let your energy circulate only where it returns amplified. Do not confuse generosity with waste or affection with availability. Scarcity is not the absence of love. It is the framework that gives love its value. The world is overflowing with noise, with men desperate to be seen, heard, validated. They shout their worth until their voices dissolve into static. But the one who knows how to remain silent, who knows how to appear rarely and meaningfully, becomes unforgettable. His very absence becomes an event. His attention becomes an honor. And in the quiet mathematics of attraction, that is how power is sustained, not through more, but through less. Scarcity, when mastered, is not a trick. It is the reflection of a deeper truth. The man who needs nothing becomes irresistible precisely because he cannot be purchased by attention. He offers what others crave most: uncertainty wrapped in calm, distance wrapped in desire, silence filled with meaning. That is the signal she cannot ignore. Chapter 6. The Mirror of Value. Every relationship, every conversation, every glance exchanged between two people is a mirror. We like to think we are perceiving others as they are, but in truth, we are mostly perceiving ourselves reflected through them. The woman who looks at you is not really seeing you. She is seeing how she feels in your presence. Your energy becomes the surface that reflects her own self-image back to her. If she feels calm, curious, or drawn toward you, it is not because of what you said. It is because of what her nervous system perceives in you: stability, confidence, and quiet abundance. The ordinary man never understands this. He tries to project worth by performing it, unaware that the more he performs, the more he reveals his dependence on others to validate it. The magnetic man, by contrast, knows that value is contagious. Whatever you believe about yourself becomes the energy others mirror back to you. In The Prince, Machiavelli observed that people judge leaders not by their intentions, but by the image of competence they radiate. He advised rulers to appear composed even in uncertainty, for the mere appearance of certainty inspires loyalty. The same law operates in attraction. The way you perceive yourself determines how others experience you. When you see yourself as incomplete, you transmit scarcity. When you know yourself as whole, you transmit abundance. She will not love you for your qualities. She will love you through the reflection of herself that those qualities allow her to feel. The mirror of value begins in stillness. When your sense of worth depends on external reactions, your energy becomes restless. You seek constant feedback, her attention, her approval, her reassurance. This restlessness signals instability. It tells her subconscious that her presence defines your peace, and that makes her uneasy. The paradox is cruel but consistent. The more you need her to affirm your value, the less she can feel safe in your energy. People crave the presence of those who are self-contained, those whose emotional state is not easily disturbed. They seek mirrors that make them feel elevated, not responsible. When you master your inner world, your presence starts to communicate something few can articulate but everyone can feel. A subtle calmness that says, "You are safe here, but you cannot control me." It's the same calmness that radiates from great leaders, artists, and thinkers. They do not compete for attention. They command it. Their silence does more than words could. They do not mirror the chaos around them. They become the surface upon which that chaos dissolves. To understand this mirror is to understand emotional contagion. Emotions, like frequencies, synchronize through proximity. A nervous person in a group can make others anxious without saying a word. A calm person can slow an entire room's heartbeat. When you carry peace, you lend it. When you carry desperation, you infect others with it. The woman across from you senses not your words, but your vibration, the rhythm of your breathing, the steadiness of your tone, the weight of your attention. If your energy is scattered, she will feel disoriented. If your energy is grounded, she will feel safe. Attraction begins where the body feels at ease. Machiavelli taught that the appearance of virtue is more important than virtue itself. He was not advocating deceit. He was describing perception. People do not experience truth directly. They experience what they feel is true. This is why self-perception is the foundation of all influence. You cannot convince anyone that you are valuable until you experience your own value internally. The moment you stop seeking proof of it, others begin to mirror it back. You might notice how effortlessly certain people attract attention. They are not necessarily the most beautiful or the most talented. They simply carry a sense of ease that makes others want to be near them. That ease comes from non-comparison, from existing as if there were no competition. When you are not trying to prove superiority, people interpret your calm as superiority itself. The absence of need feels like power. To apply this principle, you must reverse the direction of your attention. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" you ask, "What are they reflecting about me right now?" If you sense resistance, do not chase. Study it. If she withdraws, it may not be rejection. It may be a mirror of your own hidden insecurity surfacing in her behavior. The world mirrors back the frequency you emit. Change the internal and the external rearranges itself. This awareness turns every interaction into feedback rather than judgment. The people drawn to you will reveal your growth. The people repelled by you will reveal your unhealed need. You stop personalizing reactions. You start using them as instruments of calibration. Machiavelli's prince learned by watching the response of the crowd. The magnetic man learns by observing the echo of his own energy in others. Over time, this practice refines your presence. You stop reacting to disinterest or coldness because you understand they are not about you. They are reflections of energy, not verdicts on worth. You stay grounded. You stay warm but uninvested. When she withdraws, your rhythm remains steady. When she returns, you do not celebrate as if rescued. You simply resume balance. The consistency of that composure makes you an anchor in her emotional weather. The mirror of value also reveals another truth. People crave reflection of their higher self. They want to feel intelligent, graceful, and desired in your company. When you interact from confidence, they experience themselves as more confident. When you show calm, they feel calmer. The magnetic man learns to create this field not by manipulation, but by authenticity. He becomes the mirror in which others see the best version of themselves, and in that reflection, they begin to associate that feeling with him. But there is danger in becoming the mirror for too many. The same energy that attracts can drain if it is given indiscriminately. When you reflect everyone, you lose shape. You must maintain edges, boundaries that protect your identity. Machiavelli warned that a prince who tries to please all will please none. Likewise, a man who reflects everyone's desires eventually becomes transparent. The mirror loses its power when it has no center. Therefore, you must polish your reflection without erasing your outline. Authentic confidence does not mean absorbing everyone's emotions. It means staying sovereign while being receptive. You listen, but you do not lose yourself. You empathize, but you do not absorb. You remain open, yet unshaken. This is what creates the paradoxical experience of depth, the sense that one can approach you but never fully grasp you. When people encounter you, they should feel both comfort and challenge, the comfort of safety and the challenge of mystery. They should sense that your approval cannot be purchased, that your warmth is genuine but selective. The mirror must always be clean, but never fully transparent. You allow them to see themselves clearly, but only through the filter of your standards. Eventually, The mirror of value becomes self-sustaining. You no longer need to remind yourself to hold posture, to remain calm, to project abundance. The energy settles into habit. Others begin to respond to you as though you were already someone significant, and their behavior reinforces that identity. Confidence becomes circular. It feeds on its own reflection. Machiavelli might have said that fortune favors those who manage perception with precision. Here, perception begins within. When you see yourself as whole, the world adjusts to reflect that wholeness. When you no longer chase admiration, admiration follows. When you stop asking to be seen, you become impossible to ignore. The mirror of value is not a trick. It is the natural reflection of self-mastery. You do not convince anyone of your worth. You embody it so completely that their only choice is to recognize it. What you believe about yourself, quietly and without performance, becomes the world's unspoken agreement. And when you reach that point, you will understand Machiavelli's most hidden truth. Power does not come from forcing others to acknowledge you. It comes from knowing so deeply who you are that the world cannot help but remember. Chapter 7. The law of centeredness. There is a kind of power that does not shout, a gravity that draws everything toward it without moving an inch. It is not dominance or aggression. It is alignment. This is the foundation of what I call the law of centeredness, the principle that true magnetism is born when your life orbits around a single axis of purpose. Without that center, every action becomes noise. Without that quiet core, every connection collapses into reaction. The man without a center is easily pulled, easily provoked, easily forgotten. But the man who has anchored himself in something larger than approval radiates a calm so steady it becomes magnetic. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must stand on firm ground, guided by a vision that does not bend with the changing winds of circumstance. He must seem unshakable, even when surrounded by chaos, because the perception of stability is power itself. The same law applies to human relationships. The one who defines direction defines rhythm. The one who moves with purpose does not need to chase attention. Attention naturally aligns with his movement. Most men live in orbit around others. They shift shape to match what they think will please. Their tone, their opinions, even their posture morph in subtle ways, depending on who they stand beside. They are satellites circling the energy of others, never realizing how their lack of gravity drains attraction. A man without a center cannot generate tension because he has no point of resistance. He mirrors instead of emanating. He agrees to avoid conflict, laughs to mask insecurity, compliments to buy comfort. And in doing so, he communicates one unspoken truth. His world has no axis of its own. The magnetic man, however, lives from his center. His words, his silence, his gestures, all align with a deeper current of self-definition. He does not need to prove purpose because it emanates from everything he does. His work, his values, his habits form an invisible architecture that holds him steady. When he speaks, his words carry weight because they are anchored in conviction, not strategy. When he listens, his attention feels genuine because it is not fragmented by insecurity. To be near him is to sense that he is going somewhere, and that if you are fortunate, you may walk beside him for a while. This centeredness is not stubbornness. It is fluid strength, the way a river carves its path by moving, but never losing direction. It is the equilibrium between openness and control. The man anchored in purpose does not resist connection, but he never abandons himself within it. He allows intimacy without surrendering identity. He gives affection without collapsing into need. His life has weight, and that weight shapes how others move around him. A woman who encounters such energy feels something unfamiliar: relief. She no longer feels the burden of leading the emotional tempo. Her nervous system relaxes because it senses structure. The dance of attraction requires polarity. One leads, one responds. And the man who is centered naturally takes the lead without ever announcing it. His stability allows her to soften, to trust, to feel safe in the gravitational field he creates. He does not need to dominate. His direction alone provides orientation. The challenge of centeredness is that the world constantly conspires to pull you off axis. Distractions disguise themselves as opportunities. Validation masquerades as love. Every screen, every opinion, every moment of comparison tries to fracture your focus. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who listens to too many voices loses the ability to act decisively. The same is true in your internal kingdom. Every time you abandon your rhythm to follow another's, you divide your power. You must become selective, not cold, but discerning. Protect your attention as a sovereign protects his borders. To cultivate centeredness, begin by identifying what your life revolves around. It cannot be a person, for people are fluid and unpredictable. It cannot be money or admiration, for these are consequences, not directions. Your center must be an idea, a vision, a discipline, a pursuit that cannot be taken from you. It might be mastery of a craft, the creation of something enduring, or the quiet refinement of your mind. Whatever it is, it must survive solitude. Because when you can stand alone without losing balance, the world begins to organize itself around your stability. When you live this way, attraction transforms. It no longer feels like pursuit, it feels like resonance. The people who are meant to enter your life recognize the vibration of purpose and align with it effortlessly. Those who cannot keep pace fall away naturally. There is no anger in their absence because you are not chasing addition. You are protecting coherence. You stop asking, why didn't they stay? And begin asking, were they ever moving in the same direction? The man without a center sees rejection as loss. The man with a center sees it as filtration. The universe filters for those who can walk beside your purpose without distorting it. This is how centeredness preserves energy. It prevents entanglement with those who drain momentum. Machiavelli would have called it political necessity. I call it emotional sovereignty. The practice of centeredness also changes how you communicate. Your voice lowers, your pace slows, your eyes no longer dart around seeking cues. You speak with rhythm, not urgency. Even your silences become deliberate pauses rather than gaps to be filled. Others begin to calibrate themselves to your tempo. The more aligned you are internally, the more others unconsciously adapt to your rhythm externally. This is what leadership looks like in its most subtle form, the quiet authority that comes from inner order. But make no mistake, being centered does not mean being immovable. It means knowing when to move because your motion serves your vision, not because it pleases the crowd. You can bend without breaking, adapt without losing direction. The man who cannot bend is brittle. The man who bends without reason is lost. Centeredness allows for both power and grace. It is what lets you remain calm when others panic, patient when others rush, and firm when others doubt. Over time, this alignment begins to feel like peace, You stop waking up anxious about what others think. You stop chasing validation because your actions already align with something you respect. The applause or criticism of others becomes background noise, irrelevant to the rhythm of your mission. This is the point where presence transforms into authority. People trust you not because you demand it, but because your steadiness proves you deserve it. And for her, for the one drawn into your orbit, this steadiness becomes irresistible. She feels seen but not possessed, safe but not smothered, guided but not controlled. The more she tests your balance, the more your composure assures her that you will not fall. That assurance becomes the foundation of attraction, the calm in which desire thrives. Machiavelli's prince ruled through perception of order. His enemies feared him because chaos could not touch him. You too become untouchable, not through distance but through direction. You no longer chase connection. You generate it through coherence. The law of centeredness, then, is simple. Become the axis of your own life, and everything that aligns with you will begin to revolve naturally. Lose that center, and you will find yourself spinning in someone else's orbit, mistaking motion for progress. The world does not reward those who move the most. It rewards those who move from purpose. Stay still long enough to feel where your gravity lies, and when you move from that place. For in stillness, power gathers, and in alignment, power becomes destiny. Chapter 8. Emotional Alchemy. Every man who seeks power must learn to confront pain. Not the physical kind, but the invisible sort. The ache of rejection, the sting of being unseen, the quiet exhaustion of giving too much and being met with indifference. These moments, small as they may seem, are the furnaces where identity is either forged or destroyed. Most men spend their lives fleeing from this heat, seeking distractions, validation, or comfort to cool the discomfort of feeling unworthy. But the magnetic man does something different. He walks straight into the fire. He knows that emotion, like metal, is malleable when heated, and that pain, properly refined, can be transformed into power. This is the discipline I call emotional alchemy, the art of turning weakness into strength, scarcity into abundance, longing into gravity. Machiavelli, writing about states and rulers, understood this process intuitively. He knew that fortune punishes those who crumble at the first sign of chaos. It is not the well-fed lion that inspires fear, he wrote, but the one that has tasted hunger and learned to endure. To endure does not mean to suppress. It means to digest experience until it becomes fuel. The same is true for emotion. Pain itself is not your enemy. It is the raw material of presence. Without it, you would remain hollow, incapable of depth or empathy. With it, you become solid, heavy, unshakable. The ordinary man tries to escape discomfort by external means. He texts her again, seeks distractions, chases approval, numbs himself with noise. In doing so, he leaks energy. He trades self-respect for temporary relief. But every time he avoids the fire, his inner world cools, becoming brittle. He grows lighter, easier to move, easier to forget. The magnetic man, however, lets the pain do its work. He doesn't dramatize it or repress it. He observes it. He allows himself to feel loss fully, without assigning it meaning. He studies how it moves through his body, the tightening in the chest, the flutter in the stomach, the restless urge to fix something, and he stays still. He resists the impulse to act because he knows that emotion, like a storm, must complete its cycle. Over time, this stillness transforms the pain. What once felt unbearable becomes a source of insight. The body begins to adapt to intensity, and the mind learns that discomfort is not death. Each moment of controlled endurance expands your capacity for presence. The man who can remain calm within chaos becomes magnetic because calm is rare. People gravitate toward those who can hold intensity without breaking. The woman who once tested you to provoke reaction now finds herself disarmed when you simply breathe and observe. Your steadiness reframes her chaos. You become her mirror of composure, and she cannot help but respect the reflection. Emotional alchemy begins with acceptance, but it matures into redirection. Every surge of emotional energy, anger, jealousy, fear, contains enormous power. Most men waste it through reaction. The alchemist converts it into focus. After rejection, the ordinary man collapses. The alchemist channels the same fire into discipline. His work, his art, his craft. He doesn't use effort as escape. He uses it as transformation. He takes what was once emotional noise and forges it into motion toward his mission. He does not become colder. He becomes clearer. This process also cleanses the emotional field. Every unprocessed wound leaks subtle signals of insecurity, the tone of need in your voice, the hesitation in your gaze, the urgency in your presence. When you refine those wounds, you eliminate those leaks. Your body no longer speaks in frequencies of scarcity. You radiate quiet self-trust that requires no explanation. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the essence of authority, the absence of visible fear. But emotional alchemy does not demand perfection. You will falter, you will react, you will sometimes lose composure. The secret lies in recovery, how quickly you return to center after being thrown off balance. The difference between the ordinary and the magnetic is not immunity, but resilience. You cannot control fortune, Machiavelli said, but you can build defenses strong enough to withstand her storms. Your defenses are not walls, they are rituals. Breath, solitude, creation, movement, the habits that re-anchor you to your own gravity. Imagine this moment. You are tested again. She withdraws, delays, provokes. You feel the old hunger rise, the instinct to chase, to clarify, to fix. But instead of reaching outward, you breathe. You let the tension circulate within you like electricity. You do not waste it on reaction. You store it. The body vibrates with restrained energy, and that restraint becomes presence. The silence you maintain is not emptiness. It is charged stillness. She feels it instantly, because energy never lies. Her attempts to provoke fall flat against your calm, and in that silence, power changes hands. Over time, this internal refinement shapes the way you see everything. You stop labeling experiences as good or bad. You start asking what they can make you. The woman who ignored you, the friend who betrayed you, the deal that fell apart. All of them become catalysts. Every loss becomes a mirror showing where your attachment was misplaced. Every disappointment becomes an opportunity to expand your capacity for patience. You learn that nothing can truly be taken from you except illusions. What remains, after all burning has passed, is gold. Machiavelli believed that cruelty, when necessary, should be swift and purposeful. Emotional alchemy follows the same logic. When pain arrives, you do not prolong it through self-pity. You face it directly, extract its lesson, and move forward without complaint. The faster you metabolize suffering, the more efficiently you convert it into power. This is not stoicism, it is efficiency of the soul. You are not repressing emotion, you are refining it, boiling away fear until only clarity remains. Eventually, this process becomes instinctive. You no longer fear heartbreak because you have learned that heartbreak sharpens perception. You no longer resist solitude because you understand that silence refines intention. Pain loses its moral weight. It becomes information, feedback, raw material. You begin to welcome discomfort because it signals growth. The man who is comfortable with discomfort becomes indestructible. This mastery radiates outward. In a world addicted to reaction, your calm becomes a rare signal. Others can sense that nothing they do can easily disturb you. You are not numb. You are immune to manipulation. This immunity is not built on distance, but on integration. You have already met your own darkness, and you are no longer afraid of it. You are no longer performing control. You are control. Women feel this difference instantly. The ordinary man's composure cracks under tension. His silence feels forced. Yours feels natural, because it is not suppression, but sovereignty. She senses that your calm is not indifference, but depth, that beneath it lies feeling too strong to be expressed cheaply. It is the emotional equivalent of the ocean, still at the surface, infinite below. That is the final stage of emotional alchemy, the ability to feel deeply without losing direction, to burn without being consumed, to let emotion pass through you and emerge refined. Machiavelli said that a ruler must be both fox and lion, the fox to recognize traps, the lion to scare away wolves. In you, both coexist, the sensitivity to perceive emotion and the strength to master it. Pain, then, is no longer something to fear or fix. It is the crucible in which the self becomes magnetic. The man who runs from pain remains fragile. The man who transforms it becomes rare. And in a world terrified of its own feelings, rarity is irresistible. Emotional alchemy turns suffering into signal, an unspoken declaration that says, "I have walked through fire and remained whole." When she meets your eyes and senses that, she will not know why she feels drawn, only that she is. Because beneath the calm surface of your presence lies a truth few ever embody. The man who has mastered pain no longer needs to be healed, and the man who no longer needs to be healed is the one every heart seeks without understanding why. ChatGPT Deny. Chapter 9. The Game of Energy. Every interaction between two people, whether it unfolds across a dinner table or in a passing glance, is an exchange of energy. Words are merely the surface. Beneath them flows a silent current. Pace, tone, attention, emotion, all transmitting signals faster than thought. This current determines who leads and who follows, who creates tension and who dissolves it. The man who understands this hidden rhythm no longer competes with words. He orchestrates energy, and in this invisible game, control is never granted. It is claimed through awareness. Energy is the language of the body before the mind has time to intervene. It's how you can feel when someone wants something from you, even when they say nothing. It's how a room changes when certain people enter. The air thickens or lightens depending on their vibration. The ordinary man ignores this dimension. He focuses on what to say, not what to project. He crafts clever sentences, unaware that his tone betrays the need beneath them. The magnetic man knows better. He understands that energy communicates what words conceal. His power lies not in speech, but in the silence that carries meaning before language does. Machiavelli observed that a ruler's gestures must always be intentional, for people judge by appearances, not truths. He advised princes to be both lion and fox, strong enough to command, subtle enough to read. The same dual mastery applies here. The lion's presence in your stillness, the fox's perception in your attention. You learn to read energy as others read expressions. You begin to feel the imbalance when someone seeks control, the tension when someone desires validation, the shift when attraction begins to flow. In that awareness, power is born. To play the game of energy, you must first reclaim your own rhythm. Every human being radiates a frequency, the pace of your breath, the steadiness of your posture, the focus of your gaze. These are not performances, but reflections of your internal state. When your rhythm is frantic, you sync with chaos. When your rhythm is deliberate, others unconsciously slow to match it. The magnetic man never rushes. His voice carries gravity because it emerges from control. He moves as though time serves him. Even silence feels intentional around him. The woman who encounters such energy senses something unusual. She feels guided without being forced. Her nervous system, tuned to notice subtle dominance and safety, begins to align. Your stillness communicates certainty. Your calm communicates direction. The more grounded your energy, the more fluid hers becomes. Polarity is created not through words, but through frequency. Masculine energy is direction. Feminine energy is flow. When direction loses confidence, flow becomes chaos. When direction stands firm, flow becomes surrender. This is not dominance. It is balance. The ordinary man chases because his energy follows hers. Every delay in response, every sign of distance, pulls him forward like a string. He reacts, and reaction is always submission. The magnetic man never mirrors need. He mirrors stillness. If she withdraws, he does not chase. If she tests, he does not flinch. His rhythm remains constant, and in that constancy lies control. Energy, like water, always flows towards stability. When you embody that stability, everything unstable gravitates toward you. Control, however, is not rigidity. It is sensitivity combined with restraint. The man who tries to dominate energy through willpower alone becomes brittle. He confuses control with tension, presence with pressure. The true master of energy learns to yield when yielding amplifies strength. He allows pauses, silence, moments of vulnerability. He lets the energy breathe. In conversation, he listens without racing to fill space. In conflict, he holds ground without aggression. The paradox is that surrender, when chosen, becomes another form of control. Think of energy as a pendulum. Push too hard, and it swings back with equal force. Restrain too much, and it stops moving altogether. Your task is to regulate the arc, to keep momentum without losing direction. Every interaction has its rhythm. Expand and contract, speak and listen, reveal and retreat. You learn to sense when tension peaks and when to withdraw, when silence invites curiosity and when to punctuate it with presence. Like a musician, you stop forcing sound and start shaping it. Machiavelli would have called this the art of appearing effortless. He knew that power revealed too visibly provokes resistance. But power expressed naturally commands loyalty. Your energy must feel like nature, strong, calm, inevitable. You never show the labor behind composure. You let the results speak. Others will feel your steadiness before they understand it. They may call it confidence, charisma, even mystery. But what they are sensing is coherence, an inner state that does not fracture under attention. To maintain this coherence, you must protect your energetic boundaries. Energy leaks through over-explanation, apology, anxiety, and the need to be understood. The more you explain, the more you surrender authority. The more you justify, the more you dilute impact. The magnetic man speaks little, but says everything through timing and tone. He knows that energy obeys belief. If he feels unworthy, his presence weakens. If he feels complete, his silence amplifies. Watch how people react around you. Do they interrupt? Do they rush to fill your pauses? If so, your energy may be too light. Your words lack weight because your breath lacks depth. Ground yourself before you speak. Feel the floor beneath you, the air in your lungs, the stillness in your spine. When you embody stability, people instinctively listen longer. Even disagreement softens in the presence of calm authority. This is the real persuasion, not argument, but vibration. You'll begin to notice that energy shapes outcomes more than logic ever could. A hesitant no from someone uncertain carries less force than a quiet yes from someone centered. The content of speech matters less than the conviction that powers it. Machiavelli said that fear and respect stem not from words, but from reputation, a vibration that precedes you. Your reputation in this game is your frequency. It enters the room before you do. With time, you learn to play this game intuitively. You no longer plan reactions. You sense them. You feel when tension rises and when release will heighten it further. You learn that desire is not sustained by constant availability, but by managing energy exchange. You alternate warmth with silence, connection with absence, proximity with space. The rhythm becomes invisible, but its effect is tangible. She cannot explain why she keeps thinking of you, only that the energy never settles. That is the essence of magnetism, movement without motion. There is one final secret to this law. Energy always mirrors authenticity. You can fake confidence, but you cannot fake frequency. If your inner world is chaotic, no posture or phrase can disguise it for long. The body leaks truth. That is why the game of energy is not manipulation. It is mastery. You cannot control another's energy until you master your own. Every insecurity resolved inside you increases your range. Every reaction mastered expands your influence. Eventually, you stop playing altogether. You become the rhythm others tune to. You are no longer adjusting to energy. You are generating it. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said that the wise ruler does not adapt to fortune, but compels fortune to adapt to him. You no longer seek harmony, you create it. The game of energy, then, is the most silent war you will ever fight. It is fought not with words, but with awareness. It is won not through conquest, but through composure. When your energy is sovereign, every interaction becomes effortless. People feel drawn, though they can't say why. Their bodies relax, their voices soften, their hearts open. You have become the unspoken center of gravity, the calm in the chaos. And in a world addicted to noise, that calm is the rarest form of power. Chapter 10. Strategic Absence. In every game of attraction, there comes a moment when presence must give way to absence. It is a turning point so subtle that most men miss it, clinging to constant communication out of fear that silence means loss. But silence does not mean loss. It means leverage. To disappear at the right moment is not to retreat, but to allow imagination to work on your behalf. In the same way that a great sculptor shapes by removing marble, the magnetic man amplifies his impact by removing himself. This is the discipline of strategic absence, the art of deepening desire through disappearance. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must know when to show himself and when to vanish behind the curtain. Too much exposure, he warned, breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds contempt. Presence satisfies curiosity, absence multiplies it. The same is true in love, business, or politics. Power thrives not in constant visibility, but in selective scarcity. The more someone has access to you, the more they assume your presence is ordinary. The less they see of you, the more they begin to mythologize your absence. The ordinary man misunderstands this completely. He fears that silence will erase him from memory, so he clings tighter, sending messages, maintaining constant availability, keeping himself within reach at all times. His attention, once exciting, becomes background noise. The magnetic man understands the opposite. Attention loses value when uninterrupted. Desire needs space to breathe. Absence is the unseen half of presence. Just as sound relies on silence to form rhythm, connection relies on distance to generate meaning. When you disappear, you create a vacuum that thought rushes to fill. She begins to remember details, the way you moved, the pauses in your speech, the calm in your gaze. Memory exaggerates, idealizes, distorts. Your absence becomes more potent than your presence ever could. And when you return, you arrive not as a continuation, but as an event. The secret lies in timing. Too soon, and absence feels manipulative. Too late, and it turns into neglect. The goal is to withdraw when energy peaks, when connection is alive but not yet complete. Think of it as capturing momentum. You leave while curiosity still burns, while emotion still simmers. Machiavelli's ruler never exhausts his people's admiration. He departs while they still crave his return. You must do the same. Leave the conversation with something unsaid, the meeting with something unfinished, the moment with something unfulfilled. The mind abhors incompletion. It will keep turning your image until the story resolves. But strategic absence is not passive waiting. It is active cultivation. You do not vanish into emptiness. You retreat into motion. While others wonder, you build. While they replay old moments, you create new dimensions of yourself. Your absence must contain mystery. When you reappear, you must not return as who you were, but as someone slightly transformed, more focused, more refined, more composed. People should feel the difference without knowing why. This evolution turns absence into tension rather than distance. To master this, you must also release the addiction to reassurance. Every man who chases validation trades power for proximity. He fills silence because he fears the unknown. But mystery is where attraction lives. Let her wonder where you've gone. Let her ask herself what occupies your thoughts, who occupies your time. You need not answer. Curiosity is its own reward. If she forgets you, it was never attraction, it was convenience. If she remembers, you have already won. This principle extends beyond romance. In friendship, in work, in leadership, your ability to withdraw defines your impact. The boss who constantly hovers loses authority. The one who appears rarely but decisively commands attention. The friend who's always available becomes routine. The one who disappears to pursue his calling becomes legend. Absence signals purpose. Presence without pause signals dependency. Strategic absence also teaches the body discipline. You learn to resist impulse, the urge to reach, to fix, to clarify. You begin to trust that silence will work harder than repetition. Every time you resist sending that unnecessary message, you reinforce your sovereignty. Every moment you spend investing in your mission, instead of chasing validation, your gravity deepens. Others can feel that depth. They sense you have a world of your own, and that entering it is a privilege, not a guarantee. In time, your rhythm becomes unpredictable. You appear when least expected, fully present, grounded, unhurried, and vanish just as gracefully. This unpredictability keeps others alert. The nervous system, tuned to patterns, cannot habituate to uncertainty. She begins to anticipate your presence like weather, never sure when the warmth will return, only that she feels its absence. This is how fascination is born. Machiavelli understood that power demands control over perception. Strategic absence is perception management at its most elegant. It allows others to construct your myth in your stead. They fill in the blanks with imagination, and imagination is always kinder than reality. The less you explain yourself, the larger you become in their mind. A man who is constantly explaining shrinks with every sentence. A man who leaves questions unanswered grows with every silence. But this strategy must never descend into cruelty. The goal is not to punish with absence, but to invite reflection. The energy you withdraw should always feel clean, not spiteful. Absence born from resentment communicates weakness. Absence born from focus communicates value. The distinction is energetic. One repels, the other magnetizes. To apply this in your life, follow 3 principles. First, leave intentionally. Depart moments of connection while energy is high. Second, disappear productively. Use that distance to evolve. Third, return with transformation. Let your reappearance carry the weight of unseen progress. Each cycle strengthens the rhythm. Tension, absence, return. Over time, this rhythm becomes instinctual. Eventually, you no longer fear silence. You begin to see it as your ally. You understand that distance does not dissolve connection, it intensifies it. You watch how the world leans toward what it cannot immediately touch. You stop measuring relationships by proximity and start measuring them by gravity. In this stillness, something subtle happens. You no longer feel the compulsion to prove your worth through presence. You recognize that absence can speak louder than attention. You become the man who moves on his own time, not according to reaction, but intention. And as you master this rhythm, you embody the Machiavellian truth that all influence relies on the management of visibility. The magnetic man, therefore, is not the one who is always seen. He is the one whose absence is always felt. His silence lingers, his name resurfaces, his memory glows in the mind like an unfinished thought. He is both presence and echo, here and gone yet never forgotten. And that, in a world addicted to noise and exposure, is the purest form of power. Chapter 11. The Power of Delay. In a world built on immediacy, patience has become the rarest luxury. Everyone wants answers now, validation now, results now. But power lives in the pause. The magnetic man understands what Machiavelli knew centuries ago, that timing is more decisive than action. The right gesture, delivered too early, becomes weakness. The right word, spoken too soon, loses weight. True control is not in what you do, but in when you do it. This is the power of delay, the deliberate suspension of impulse to allow anticipation, tension, and gravities to mature on their own. Every human relationship is governed by rhythm, and rhythm depends on timing. Most men rush through that rhythm in fear of silence, mistaking speed for progress. They answer instantly, confess feelings too early, seek resolution before emotion has had time to breathe. Their urgency betrays insecurity. The woman senses it not through logic, but instinct. The faster he moves, the more she feels he fears loss. The magnetic man, by contrast, uses time as his ally. He allows moments to stretch, pauses to deepen, silences to expand, until they create their own pressure. Delay is not denial. It is the shaping of perception through patience. When you delay gratification, whether in speech, reply, or presence, you signal that you are not ruled by impulse. You demonstrate emotional sovereignty. Machiavelli warned rulers that to act without calculation is to act under compulsion, and compulsion is the enemy of power. Delay is how you turn reaction into response. It's how you make every decision feel intentional, every word measured, every presence earned. Watch how anticipation transforms emotion. A conversation that ends abruptly becomes a thought that lingers. A reply that comes after stillness feels heavier than one given immediately. Delay forces the mind to engage imagination, and imagination is the birthplace of desire. The longer the space between stimuli, the more room there is for fantasy to grow. When you delay, you are not withdrawing. You are letting her mind do your work for you. The weight becomes the magnet. This law governs everything from romance to leadership. The leader who answers too quickly reveals desperation to please. The one who deliberates seems wise. The man who cannot endure silence exposes emotional need. The one who lets silence live communicates confidence. The world reads delay as self-sufficiency. It assumes that the one who waits is the one who has options. You can apply this to messages, meetings, affection, decisions. Every delay adds weight. Every pause announces, I move when I choose. But delay must never become manipulation. Timing loses its magic when driven by fear. The man who withholds to provoke becomes transparent. Real delay is not performance. It is composure. You delay because you are genuinely absorbed elsewhere, because your attention is not cheaply available. Your life has rhythm, and not everything deserves immediate access to it. That difference between strategy and authenticity is everything. Manipulation fractures trust. Composure builds mystique. The magnetic man knows that emotion peaks in waves. After excitement, there is always a quiet valley. He does not chase the peak. He lets it descend naturally before re-engaging. He knows that emotional intensity, when sustained without interruption, exhausts the nervous system. A moment of withdrawal allows tension to rebuild. He treats desire the way a sculptor treats clay, pressing, releasing, reshaping through intervals of rest. Consider how this manifests in communication. The ordinary man texts to fill silence. He believes his consistency proves care. unaware that constancy without contrast numbs attention. The magnetic man replies when ready, not when expected. His delay is not punishment, it's punctuation. His response lands like a slow drumbeat, measured, deliberate, unhurried. She begins to lean forward into the silence, anticipating the next rhythm. In that anticipation, desire grows. Machiavelli's rulers used the same principle in diplomacy. They never answered envoys immediately. They let the waiting do the talking. The delay made their eventual response feel decisive, even if the decision itself was simple. Power, he wrote, belongs to those who define the tempo of events. You must learn to define the tempo of emotion. Every relationship is a dance between tension and release. If you always move first, you become predictable. If you hold the beat, you become unforgettable. Delaying also cultivates depth within you. When you do not rush to react, you create space for understanding. The first impulse, anger, fear, excitement, is rarely the truth. Delay filters emotion through awareness, turning instinct into insight. You begin to notice patterns, how often impatience leads to regret, how often silence brings clarity. You learn that action rooted in calm always carries more precision than action rooted in need. In a culture addicted to speed, your patience becomes magnetic. People will describe you as composed, mysterious, difficult to read, but what they're really sensing is control. You no longer dance to external rhythms. You make others adjust to yours. They begin to text less impulsively, speak more thoughtfully, pause longer after you do. Your delay recalibrates their tempo. Without realizing it, they enter your orbit. Delay also builds discipline. Each time you resist reacting, you reinforce your mastery over emotion. Each second of silence is a rep of restraint. This is how power compounds, not through grand displays, but through small, consistent victories over impulse. You start to trust your timing. You begin to sense the perfect moment to speak, to move, to appear. And when that moment arrives, your action carries the weight of everything you withheld. There will be times when delay feels unbearable. The urge to act will burn. That is precisely when it matters most. You are teaching your nervous system that urgency is an illusion. You are training yourself to separate feeling from motion. You are learning to make emotion wait until it can serve you. Machiavelli said that fortune favors the prepared, not the quick. Preparation is what delay provides. Space to gather strength, to refine intent, to choose precision over panic. Eventually, delay becomes second nature. You no longer count seconds or analyze strategies. You move only when the internal rhythm calls. Others experience this as confidence, but it is deeper than that. It is patience in motion. You can sense when the energy has ripened, when curiosity has peaked, when the next word will have maximum effect. You never interrupt tension, you harvest it. In this state, you stop fearing silence altogether. You begin to enjoy it. You see how people fill it with nervous chatter, how quickly they surrender control to time itself. You do not. You understand that the one who can wait the longest holds the outcome. Patience is not passivity. It is hidden dominance. So delay the reply. Delay the approach. Delay the explanation. Let silence ferment until it becomes substance. Let her wonder what you're thinking, where you've gone, what you'll do next. Delay until curiosity outweighs comfort. Then act, not to prove worth, but to complete the rhythm. The power of delay is not about withholding. It's about shaping the tempo of reality. It is the difference between a song that fades unnoticed and one that ends on a note so perfect it echoes in silence. The man who moves too soon disappears into noise. The man who waits becomes the silence everyone listens for. Chapter 12. The Paradox of Dominance. Every discussion of power eventually circles back to one question: who leads and who follows? Most people think dominance is loud, a display of confidence, charisma, or control. But in truth, dominance is almost silent. The strongest form of control is the one that does not look like control at all. It is influence that feels like freedom. Machiavelli understood this paradox intimately. He wrote that the most effective ruler is not the one who constantly asserts his authority, but the one whose subjects obey him without realizing they are doing so. The same principle governs human attraction. The most magnetic man is not the one who demands submission, but the one whose composure invites it. The ordinary man believes dominance is about action. He talks more, insists more, interrupts more, tries to impose his will on every situation. He mistakes movement for strength and attention for respect. But the more he forces, the weaker he becomes, because true power never announces itself. The magnetic man, by contrast, understands that real dominance is internal alignment, expressed externally as ease. It is the quiet certainty of someone who does not need to prove anything, because everything he does already proves it. The paradox of dominance lies in balance. The less you try to control others, the more they move in rhythm with you. This is because human beings, consciously or not, are always scanning for leadership. When they encounter someone emotionally stable, they instinctively calibrate to that stability. Your calm becomes the gravity that pulls them. This is not manipulation, it is nature. The masculine energy leads not by demanding, but by embodying direction. The feminine energy, wired to sense coherence, naturally follows what feels grounded. To embody dominance, you must learn the language of presence. Presence does not come from posture or tone alone. It emerges from consistency. When your emotions, thoughts, and actions align, people feel safe around you. They may not agree with you, but they will trust you. This trust is the first step of influence. Machiavelli said that a prince must be both loved and feared, but fear without respect breeds rebellion. The modern equivalent is tension without trust. The magnetic man balances both. His steadiness creates respect. His unpredictability sustains desire. Every interaction, romantic or otherwise, contains a silent contest for emotional leadership. Whoever stays calm first wins. When she tests your patience, she's not trying to hurt you. She's testing the structure of your energy. She needs to know if your composure is real or rehearsed. If you react, she feels your weakness. If you hold your frame, not with arrogance but with ease, she feels safe to relax. Dominance, at its highest form, is not resistance but containment. It is the ability to hold chaos without needing to fix it. Imagine a storm at sea. The waves crash, the wind screams, the water swirls in panic. And then, beneath it all, there is the deep ocean, still, vast, unmoved. That is what dominance feels like to others. You are not fighting the storm. You are the depth beneath it. When she cries, complains, or provokes, Your stillness becomes her compass. You do not match her emotion. You absorb it. You let her waves crash without capsizing. Your calm tells her subconscious what her conscious mind cannot articulate, that she is safe in your presence. This quiet leadership is also how you command groups, conversations, and environments. Walk into a room and notice how most people seek cues, who to approach, how to act, where to stand. If your body language is relaxed and deliberate, they'll adjust to you without realizing it. Speak slowly, move with intention, hold your gaze, not to intimidate, but to stabilize the energy around you. You are setting rhythm, not enforcing control. Machiavelli would call this the art of appearing natural. Real authority always looks effortless. The paradox of dominance deepens when you realize that surrender is part of leadership. To control everything is to reveal insecurity. A leader who micromanages shows he fears collapse. A man who cannot let go of attention reveals that he depends on it. The magnetic man can let go because his confidence does not rely on outcome. He can withdraw without anxiety because his value does not fluctuate with presence. That freedom is what makes others follow him. They sense he is already whole. In love, this manifests as polarity. The woman feels free precisely because your structure holds steady. She can express, explore, even rebel, knowing the container will not break. You don't silence her emotion, you ground it. That grounding becomes intimacy. She feels the paradox she cannot name, that she surrenders not to dominance, but to safety. You lead not through control, but through composure. This form of dominance also transforms communication. You stop arguing for validation. You stop explaining yourself to be understood. You no longer chase agreement. You state your truth calmly and allow silence to follow. The ordinary man floods conversations with justification. The magnetic man uses minimal words, maximum conviction. He lets tension breathe, because he knows tension is what gives words gravity. When you can sit in silence after a statement without rushing to fill it, you hold authority. The less you need to convince, the more convincing you become. Dominance, in its refined form, is self-control projected outward. It begins with emotional regulation, the ability to feel without collapsing. You may feel anger, but you don't let it drive you. You may feel attraction, but you don't let it dictate your behavior. You may feel rejection, but you don't let it diminish your energy. This is mastery in its purest form, emotion present but not ruling. Machiavelli would call this the rare art of seeming both human and divine, the warmth of feeling balanced by the coolness of judgment. The paradox, then, is that dominance is not force, it is peace. It is not about overpowering others, but about being unshakable in yourself. People confuse intimidation with power, but intimidation is the refuge of the insecure. True power requires no display. It announces itself through quiet confidence, through eyes that do not dart, through gestures that do not hurry. And yet, this calm does not make you passive. You still lead. You still decide when to move, when to speak, when to step back. But every action emerges from inner stability, not reaction. The energy flows outward from your center instead of being pulled outward by circumstance. You do not suppress emotion. You channel it like electricity, focused and alive. Eventually, this calm authority becomes your nature. You stop thinking in terms of control altogether. You no longer ask, "How do I make them follow me?" You ask, How do I lead myself so clearly that others naturally align? Leadership becomes resonance, not dominance. The paradox resolves itself. The man who no longer seeks control ends up possessing it completely. When you reach this state, you will notice something subtle. People begin to defer to you without knowing why. They pause when you speak, slow when you move, soften when you smile. You will feel no need to assert anything, because everything around you will already reflect your balance. This is the highest form of power, the one Machiavelli hinted at but never described. The ruler who governs without command, the man whose stillness moves the world. Chapter 13. The magnetic identity. At some point in this transformation, all the strategies dissolve. The pauses, the silence, the restraint. They were never tricks, only training wheels. What remains after everything is stripped away is not technique, but state. You no longer act magnetic, you are magnetic. You no longer calculate scarcity, you naturally protect your energy. This is the arrival point of the journey, the creation of the magnetic identity. It begins with something almost imperceptible, the end of performance. For most of your life, you've been performing in ways you didn't even recognize. Performing confidence to mask doubt, humor to soften rejection, kindness to earn affection. But all performance has a cost. Each gesture that seeks validation is a withdrawal from your inner wealth. The magnetic identity is born when you stop trying to appear and start allowing yourself to be. When you no longer need to be seen, your visibility becomes effortless. Machiavelli, in The Prince, wrote that power becomes stable only when it ceases to rely on deception. A ruler who must constantly manipulate is already fragile, for his power depends on illusion. The same is true for men who depend on tactics. If you must consciously act magnetic, you haven't yet become it. The goal is internalization, where every gesture emerges from authenticity, where every silence is natural, not strategic. The man who embodies his own worth communicates it through existence alone. The magnetic identity is composed of 3 layers: integrity, purpose, and presence. Integrity is the alignment between thought, word, and action. It's not morality, it's coherence. When you promise and deliver, when you believe and behave as one, people sense it immediately. Integrity radiates trust. It tells others that your energy is real, not a performance. A man without integrity leaks power because his words and actions pull in different directions. He may talk about strength but live in fear. He may preach confidence but crave validation. Integrity repairs that fracture. It is not loud, but it is unmissable. Purpose gives shape to that integrity. Without purpose, strength becomes noise. Purpose is the quiet conviction that you are moving towards something beyond approval. It anchors you when emotion wavers, guides you when temptation whispers. It doesn't need to be grand. It only needs to be true. The ordinary man flails between desires because he has no direction. The magnetic man, even when lost, walks with intention. Machiavelli said that fortune favors those who build the appearance of inevitability. Purpose makes you inevitable. Presence is the visible form of both. It is what others feel before you speak. Presence is not about being noticed. It's about being remembered. It's the way time slows when you enter a room. Not because of what you do, but because of how you inhabit yourself. Your movements are minimal, your words deliberate, your attention undivided. You are not distracted because you are not fragmented. Presence is coherence made visible. Once you embody these three layers, attraction becomes reflex. You don't think about scarcity or dominance or delay. They become side effects of alignment. You give less because you no longer need to give more. You withdraw naturally because your focus has value. You delay because you are immersed in your purpose. The strategies dissolve into instinct, and instinct becomes your identity. The world senses this shift. People start treating you differently. They hesitate before interrupting you. They seek your approval subtly. They adjust their tone without knowing why. You are no longer competing for attention. You have become the standard by which attention is measured. The same silence that once felt awkward now feels powerful because it is filled with self-possession. In relationships, the magnetic identity changes everything. The woman no longer feels like the goal. She becomes part of the orbit. Your energy doesn't chase her. It invites her. You don't pull. You allow. She feels drawn not because you manipulate, but because you represent something rare. A man complete within himself. You are not trying to impress. You are expressing your truth through calm consistency. You are not performing for love. You are extending love through presence. When she tests you now, it doesn't disturb your peace. You no longer experience those tests as threats, but as reminders of your own depth. Her fluctuations don't define your value. Whether she stays or leaves, your center remains unmoved. You have transcended need. The relationship becomes a choice, not a refuge. She senses this immediately, that your happiness is self-generated. This realization transforms attraction into respect. Even in solitude, your energy grows. You no longer dread being alone because solitude no longer feels empty. It feels full of attention reclaimed from the world, full of ideas, creation, and self-dialogue. You are not withdrawing, you are consolidating. Silence becomes nourishment. The world's noise, once intoxicating, now feels heavy and irrelevant. You begin to crave stillness the way others crave attention. This is the true secret Machiavelli hinted at beneath the language of politics. The ruler who governs himself governs all. Once you no longer depend on approval, you become immune to manipulation. Once you no longer fear loss, you become unlosable. The magnetic identity is not about perfection. It's about sovereignty, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. It is the freedom to choose every reaction instead of being ruled by impulse. Eventually, you will notice that power no longer feels like something external. It feels like peace. You stop needing to dominate or control because nothing external can add or subtract from what you already possess. You speak less, but every word lands deeper. You do less, but every action resonates longer. This is the essence of authority, influence without effort. The world, always drawn to coherence, begins to orbit around your steadiness. People seek your opinion not because you shout it, but because you embody clarity. They find comfort in your silence because it carries weight. They feel safer near you, not because you protect them, but because your energy protects itself. You have become the calm inside the storm, and in a world of chaos, that calm is irresistible. The magnetic identity, then, is not something you chase. It is what remains when you stop chasing. It is not built through addition, but through subtraction. Less noise, less need, less performance. You become powerful not by reaching outward, but by returning inward until nothing within you contradicts itself. And when you arrive there, when every word, movement, and silence aligns, you will feel it. The restlessness will end. The performance will stop. And for the first time, you will not only hold power, you will be it. Chapter 14. The Forbidden Principle. Everything you've learned so far, the silence, the absence, the restraint, the patience, points toward one conclusion. All the rules, all the strategies, all the subtle psychological tactics dissolve when you finally understand the forbidden principle. The world bends to the man who no longer needs it to. Machiavelli hinted at this truth, but never wrote it plainly. In his chapters about power and rule, he spoke of manipulation, timing, and perception. Yet beneath his words lies something quieter and far more dangerous: self-sufficiency. For the ruler who governs himself cannot be ruled, and the man who does not seek validation cannot be controlled by those who offer it. That is the principle most dangerous to any system of influence. The man who is free from need cannot be conquered, only followed. In the world of attraction, this manifests as the most magnetic form of energy imaginable: stillness without absence, confidence without arrogance, detachment without coldness. You are no longer defined by who looks at you or who doesn't. Whether she desires you or forgets you, you remain complete. Your worth exists prior to recognition, and because of that, recognition becomes inevitable. The ordinary man never reaches this place because he spends his life trying to prove that he deserves to be seen. Every conversation, every gesture, every pursuit is driven by the quiet plea, "Please notice me." But attention gained through effort always feels temporary because it depends on performance. When you chase it, you signal that your value is conditional. The forbidden principle reverses this entirely. Value is inherent, not earned. The moment you believe this, everything begins to move toward you. Machiavelli would call this the illusion of fortune. People will look at your life and call you lucky, not realizing that what they interpret as luck is simply alignment. When you act from internal abundance, opportunities, admiration, and attraction begin to orbit naturally. The pattern seems supernatural, but it is psychological. The human mind is drawn to stability the way planets are drawn to gravity. When your energy no longer leaks outward in search of approval, it thickens, it condenses, and that density becomes power. This is why those who try to imitate confidence always fail. They copy the gestures, but not the source. True power has no audience in mind. It does not adjust itself to perception. It simply is. The man who truly embodies confidence does not even appear confident. He appears peaceful. His silence feels like choice. His presence feels like inevitability. His calm makes the restless feel unsteady, not because he intends it, but because he reminds them of what they lack: self-command. The forbidden principle also explains the strange reversal that occurs at the end of all pursuit. The less you need, the more you receive. Not because the universe rewards detachment, but because your detachment reveals clarity. You stop chasing the wrong things. You stop performing for people who were never meant to understand you. You conserve energy for what actually aligns. The world, now deprived of your effort, begins to compete for your attention. To live by this principle, you must unlearn the oldest lie, that love, respect, or success come from outside yourself. They are reflections, not sources. Every external reward you've ever chased was only a mirror, showing you what you already believed or doubted within. When you stop chasing mirrors, the reflections start chasing you. That is the true reversal of power. You begin to understand why your silence was powerful, why absence made you desired, why delay magnified tension. They were never tricks. They were demonstrations of this principle, glimpses of a man who could live without approval. Each time you withheld reaction, you proved to yourself that you were sovereign. Each time you walked away instead of clinging, you declared that your world was enough. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that fortune favors those who appear unmoved by it. The prince who no longer fears losing his throne rules with calm precision. The man who no longer fears losing affection connects with authenticity. Fear distorts power. Freedom refines it. When you remove fear, what remains is natural dominance, influence that flows rather than forces. The forbidden principle cannot be practiced. It must be realized. It dawns slowly, after the cycles of chase and silence and return. One morning you wake up, and the compulsion is gone. You no longer open your phone hoping for validation. You no longer speak to fill space. You feel full even when alone. You move slower, not from hesitation, but from completeness. And when people meet you now, they sense it. They cannot name it, but they feel it. Their bodies register safety and mystery at once. You are not competing for their attention. You are granting them access. Every gesture you make feels deliberate because it comes from stillness, not strategy. They find themselves thinking about you long after you're gone, not because you manipulated their interest, but because you awakened something dormant in them, the desire for peace. This is the ultimate irony. The end of pursuit is the beginning of attraction. The less you chase, the more you draw in. The less you demand, the more is offered. When you live as though nothing is missing, the world rushes to fill your hands. You become, in the truest sense, what Machiavelli envisioned: a ruler without a crown, a leader without subjects, a man whose command requires no force. You lead simply by being aligned. You attract by existing fully in your reality. You do not chase approval because you embody it. You do not ask to be seen because your stillness cannot be ignored. The forbidden principle, then, is not dark or manipulative. It is liberation disguised as power. It is the realization that every technique of attraction was only a path leading back to yourself. Once you master silence, absence, patience, and restraint, you discover they were never tools to control others. They were methods to control you. When that control becomes effortless, when the inner kingdom stands firm, no matter who enters or leaves, you have reached the final truth. Power is not possession, it is presence. And the most powerful man in any room is the one who could walk away from everything and still remain whole.